Coming to you live from Tampa Bay, Health Info Radio is proud to present The Pulse with your host, Carol Ann, your tough love administrator.
Welcome, everybody, to The Pulse, where you are always up to date with the latest, greatest health and fitness information. I am your host, Carol Ann, your fitness expert, or as I like to put it, AKA your closet couch potato. Because I know we have fitness people out there, but you know sometimes we like to hang out on the couch sometimes. But today we have, gang, a packed show. We've got lots of great information to share with you. We have an amazing guest today. We have a U.S. Martial Arts Hall of Famer, Mark Santoshi Russo. And we'll get into that because that is very unique to me, and he has lots to share with us, including the meaning behind his name. And he has an incredible story, and so we're basically going to be dedicating the entire show to learning all about martial arts, his background, his self-development programs, and so I'm very, very excited about that. And so in addition, we just kicked off the 2012 Summer Olympics, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to wrap it all up with the latest, greatest, what is trending in fitness these days. So gang, stay glued. You don't want to miss any of it. But right now, I have a hydrate alert for everybody today. So these are for everybody who is a regular listener on the show or somebody who's just joining us, even my guest today. What this is an opportunity. Typically, we have protein drinks in here, and so we like to educate people on pre- and post-workout shakes to keep them hydrated, healthy, and to feed those muscles after a really great workout. But today we have water. So we're going to talk about a little bit for a moment how important water is for your workout. You always need to have water with you during your workout and just remain hydrated throughout the entire time. And then every time you think about drinking water throughout the day, always have it on hand and do what I call the 10-second chug. So the 10-second chug of water throughout the day, you'll remain hydrated. At times, if you feel lethargic during the day, it may not be that you're tired. You may be dehydrated. So just kind of keep that in mind. And we have a little game that we like to play. So every time you hear the word of the day, you take a chug of your water. And so the word of the day today is mind. So every time you hear the word mind, chug your water. Take a 5-10 second chug. And so that way you'll remind yourself that you're going to remain hydrated. All right, so super excited, gang. So don't hate, rehydrate. All right, we're going to get into speaking to our guest today. Like I said before, he is a U.S. Martial Arts Hall of Famer. He has, gang, I'm looking at this list of credentials, and he has a master's degree in mass communications and marketing, master's degree in business administration from University of South Florida in Tampa. He is currently pursuing a PhD in transpersonal psychology, and so we're getting that with the University of Sedona. My in-laws are living in Flagstaff, Arizona right now, so I've been to Sedona several times, so that's pretty exciting. So anyway, Mark, I want to welcome you to the show. Mark Russo, thanks for coming.
Thanks, Carol Ann. It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell me, you have, like I said, a list of credentials here, and I can't wait to hear about everything that you have going on because we have several people we have a huge population that's interested in martial arts. There's so many different disciplines out there. You, of all people, are the expert of experts to teach us about, the difference between some of the popular disciplines out there, what you're teaching, and it goes along with self-development that you really like to promote, and you're an inspirational speaker. And so now I'm looking at, you come from a pretty traditional business background. And so tell us how you got involved in martial arts and how you made the transition from your traditional background into pursuing your passion.
Yeah, well, to answer the first part, what got me into martial arts is a pretty funny story. When I was young, we lived in a ranch home in Miami, And I used to sneak out in the middle of the night and crawl down the hall and hide under the couch to watch TV with my parents. Of course, they didn't know I was there. And I remembered seeing this movie. It was a James Bond movie called You Only Live Twice. And, very exciting film for me. And then these ninja guys showed up, and that was it. I thought it was the coolest thing I had ever seen in my life. And from that point on, I started bugging my parents to get me into martial arts lessons. And, they thought it was something that was going to pass, and turned out to be, 47 years now.
Wow.
I've been studying, and I've been teaching since I was 15. So that's what got me into martial arts. What caused me to pursue a business degree was, as a young man, I was doing very well as a tournament competitor and, enjoying some classic martial arts. And I started my first studio, and unfortunately got involved with a fairly unscrupulous individual. And, long story short, it just didn't turn out well for me. I had put in a whole bunch of the work, and then, got blindsided by some things that I, was too ignorant from a business perspective to understand. So I vowed to myself at that point, okay, that's never going to happen to me again. So having been out of school for 8 years at that point, I went back to school to get a master's degree in business. And that was a little, stepping out of the comfort zone, because I was typically one of these people who throughout school avoided math like the plague. Mm-hmm. And so, the first class I took in the MBA program was quantitative methods of management.
There you go.
Yeah. So
we have to count.
Yes.
But it's so important, because, we also have a group of fitness professionals, or any aspect of health, fitness, you're pursuing your passion. And one of the missing links a lot of times is that business acumen for health and fitness professionals. And so it is one of the things that you really need to learn as a business owner or somebody that is trying to make a living at your passion. It's very, very important. So it's a great combination.
Yeah, it's, that unfortunately, that's the typical entrepreneur's dilemma. You're good at what you do, but as you said, if you don't get yourself a pretty good business education, then what your dreams were made of can quickly become nightmares. Because unfortunately there are people out there that are real ready to take advantage of anybody they can take advantage of, and it's the maybe less enjoyable part of taking what your passion is and turning it into your livelihood.
So you made that, so you went and you got your business degree, and then what happened after that? Tell us about your transition.
Yeah, right at the end of my business degree, an acquaintance called me up and said, "Hey, we was a management development company, and they at the time focused on leadership development in the corporate environment." And so this individual called me up and said, "Hey, we would like to invite you to join our company because you're one of the few people that we know who has the left brain business skills developed and is very good at all of the right brain interpersonal, personal development material as well." And so that kicked off a new career for me, and I did quite a few years with Fortune 500 companies, IBM, AT&T, Coca-Cola, Anheuser-Busch, whole bunch of these companies. And I really enjoyed it because leadership is, I think, to a large degree, just very much lacking in the corporate world. And not only leadership of the companies, but then individual leadership as well. So this is how I would always engage in that kind of training. Of course, the company would be paying me to be there, and they would be, in many cases, forcing the managers to be there. And I would always start by just telling them, "Hey, look, we don't know how long you're going to be with this individual company. So over the next few days, be here for yourself. The good news is the company's paying for you to be here. So take whatever it is I have to offer that resonates with you and take it way outside of your work environment. Take it to your home, take it to your community. This is all about you. So it was important to change that perspective because a lot of them resented being there. They typically were, I have real work to do was kind of, I should be back at the office.
Right.
And of course, by the end of it, they were all just, hey, this was great. And they saw immediately how they could use this in every area of their life, way beyond just what they were, what their charter was for that individual company.
And it's usually the case, usually when people are sent to go to these conferences or these workshops, they do have that mentality of, well, the company's making me. And so, yeah, definitely taking advantage of that opportunity for that development. Now, were you at the same time then teaching martial arts at that same time, kind of keeping both aspects going?
Yeah, good question. I had what I called a training group. So I probably at that point, I had somewhere on the order of 30 students, and I had rented this little place in the back of a strip mall. And it was funny because it was very ninja-like because I didn't advertise. And the door, in fact, the only thing on the door was E5. It was the unit. So to find me, you had to somehow come in contact with somebody.
The password to get in the door.
Just about. You had to come in contact with somebody who was training with me. And what I was doing through those years was testing out what I was learning because when I found this ninja martial art, I already had black belts in 4 other martial arts systems. And when I met my teacher, Stephen K. Hayes, the guy just toyed with me like a mouse, and I knew right away, okay, this is what I've been looking for since I was 8 years old. And it was just ironic that, it was that James Bond movie that had these ninjas in it, and then these many years later, I come in contact with the first American in the history of the ninja martial arts to be accepted into training.
Wow.
He brought the ninja martial arts to the United States and actually to the broader world at large. He was, he's known as the father of American ninjutsu, but he went way beyond America. And to this day, he's famous worldwide.
Now, was that here in Tampa Bay area or where was this located at that time?
He lives in Dayton, Ohio.
Okay.
And, my bit of luck was that his mother lived in Naples. And the way I got introduced to him was through a friend of mine who at the time was an editor at Black Belt Magazine. And I told him that, I was really going through kind of a depression because, my parents, who, my father is very intellectual and, captain of the debate team at Wesleyan University and so on and so forth. And, wasn't necessarily all that thrilled about me being as excited as I was about martial arts.
Right.
And so, I kept getting the, when are you going to grow up and grow out of this thing? And so I, in my late 20s, I started to think, maybe they were right because I felt myself, getting that little bit slower, that little bit less flexible. And yet, the 17 and 19-year-olds just kept coming through the door. And so I started to wonder, oh, shoot, have I been wrong the whole time? And my parents were right. And now, do I need to grow up and grow out of this? Is martial arts really a kid's thing? And based on, superior strength, speed, flexibility. And then this friend of mine said, well, let me introduce you to this Stephen Hayes. And I had seen his books and I was like, wow, really? And and again, long story short, I met the guy. He toyed with me like a mouse and it was the happiest day of my life. I remember, he said, okay, just punch me, I want you to really try to get me. And I was a little cocky back then. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And I tried to punch this guy. And my body I had no reference for what was happening to my body. It was not anything that I understood through previous training. So I remember being all crunched up and being in pain in several parts of my body and my face down in the dirt and thinking, yes, this is what I've been looking for my whole life. I have no idea what you just did to me, but that's what I want. And
saved.
Absolutely. And so from there on, I literally followed him around the globe for the next probably 10 years.
Wow.
Because early on, he was it. He was the only instructor. And so there was maybe every 2 months an opportunity to train with him somewhere else in the world. And they didn't make it easy. They didn't make it easy at all. So
you were bound and determined. This was it for you.
Oh, this was like I said, is what I'd been looking for since I was 8. And I recognized that right away. So nothing was going to turn me from this path.
So, you mentioned that you had black belts. And so this was the discipline that this was right up your alley. You met kind of like your fulfillment, if you will. So talk about what is the discipline that you practice and why is it different from other disciplines?
Yes. This is, Stephen Hayes has founded what we call Toshindo, the way of the heart and the blade. And it really is a modernization of the ninja martial arts that, are still taught in Japan. A lot of what is taught is still based on traditional movement. So there was a certain way that people moved during, the feudal periods of Japan based on wearing armor and, other considerations that just are no longer appropriate. I mean, people are going to hit you or attack you in very different ways. There's still some similarities, but there are also very critical adjustments that need to be made to modernize. And the 33rd Grandmaster wrote a piece in which he, made it very clear that, no, this is the legacy of the ninja martial arts, that they are adaptable and they should always be adapting to all of the variables that are appropriate for the given time that you're operating in. So this was the legacy, the history of the ninja. So that is exactly what we are doing with Toshindo. And the major difference, a couple of the major differences are, if you look at something where, the martial art involves you lifting your leg up high into the air, maybe to kick an opponent in the head, now you're not only fighting your opponent, but you're fighting the force of gravity. So in the ninja martial art, for example, we would never kick anybody in the head unless we got your head down close to the ground where it made sense to kick you in the head.
Okay.
So we're going to teach you how to harness the force of gravity as opposed to fight the force of gravity. And the good news there is, if you have to defend yourself, gravity is around 24/7,
Right.
never sleeps, best ally you could ever have on a fight, always on call. And we're teaching you how to use the human musculoskeletal system against itself. And then we also have a large component of psychological warfare. So what we are talking about is realistic self-protection, as opposed to a sport martial art or an entertainment martial art, which is what has become very popular these days. So psychological warfare would be leading an attacker around by their negative intentions. So I could lead you right into a trap based on your commitment to do harm to me, for example.
Very smart. So
Yeah.
would you consider that would be the mind-body connection within the martial arts and that? Because I know a lot these days it's all about the mind-body connection, and even yoga has, like martial arts even has kind of a yoga.
Everybody take a sip of water.
Yeah, everybody
She
take a
said
sip of my
mine.
mind. Woo! I like it. Good for you. He's on. He caught it. So we always have to count how many times that we
Probably going to hear
get
that
the
word a
mind,
lot
right?
now.
Right, yeah.
Get your bottle ready.
That's right. I love it. So, with the martial arts, it's all Eastern culture influence, and then that's the same thing with yoga. So, how do you play that into?
Yeah,
martial arts?
I have a couple of ways to speak to that. Fortunately, we live in the United States of America, so, as crazy as it is, we all just, were horrified by this Aurora thing that happened recently. We still live in a country where the probability of you or I getting physically attacked is still relatively low. I mean, I think it's increasing a little bit, but still relatively low if we compare ourselves to other places in the world you could be living. We do know this, though. In the next 6 months, you or I getting physically attacked is fairly low probability. However, within the next week or two, I guarantee you'll be attacked verbally, emotionally, psychologically, financially. So all of the principles that we use for self-protection, that we learn on the mat in a physical form, directly translate into all of those different areas of our lives. So our system is based on 5 elements: earth, water, fire, wind, and the void. And this is not just something somebody made up. I mean, this goes all the way back to mind science teachings from the southern Himalayas, where there were mountain mystics and birthplaces of certain forms of Buddhism. So this is mind science as well. And just to give you a brief rundown, the earth element has to do with, as you might guess, stability, taking control of your life, physical confrontation, maybe holding your ground. The water element has to do with knowledge. So that's the part of our human makeup that wants to know that what we believe in is actually true. From a physical perspective, the water element is our most defensive element. That's where we want to either avoid or deal with the immediate danger and then engineer either an escape or a counterattack. The fire element has to do with connectivity. That's the part of us that wants to have connections with other people. It's the part of us that wants to express ourselves. And the fire element, from a physical protection perspective, is also about connection. And a lot of times that means it's a little preemptive. So I know something's about to happen. I'm going to stop this before it starts. So that shows up in football, which everybody's familiar with. You can probably finish this phrase, right? The best defense is what?
The best offense?
Right. The best defense is a good offense. So sometimes if I know I'm about to be attacked, there are ways for me to preempt that and either stop the attack from ever happening or deal with it immediately so it doesn't evolve into a much more complex problem. The wind element has to do with circular evasive movement on the physical level. So now I'm going to redirect the attacker's energy or be invisible. In other words, if you're trying to hit me in the face, I'm not going to block the attack. I'm just going to make my face not be where you wanted it to be. The wind element has to do with action. This is what we call the realm of the warrior. And it also has to do with service. So that's the part of the human makeup that wants us to be connected to something bigger than ourselves. So something that we might feel in service to. And so there is, which if you look at each of these elements, earth, water, fire, and wind, there is an effective way to connect to these elements. But as you might guess, there's also a way for these elements to get out of balance.
Right.
And each of us has a proclivity toward feeling more comfortable with one of these 4 elements and less comfortable with one of the 4 elements. And then the other 2 might fall in between. So even based on the very brief descriptions I just gave you, you might have a sense for, I'm an earthy person.
Right.
I like to sort of be in control. Or I'm a watery person. I'm the guy or gal who sort of sits back and observes. I want to observe and collect information. Or, no, I'm a fiery person. I'm the life of the party. I'm the one who gets out and communicates with everybody. Or, no, I'm a windy person. I'm the person who's always doing something. So if somebody needs something done, I'm jumping in there and getting it done for them and helping out. So there are positive ways, but then there are also ways that these things could work against us. So if I got, for example, I got out of balance, now I'm a person who feels like I have to be in control wherever I am. Well, that could be a control freak, and that could be very annoying. Water element could be, I'm always gathering that last bit of information before I actually ever do anything, so I could sort of get trap myself that way. Fire element, one way that could get out of control is ready, fire, aim, so I'm always shooting my mouth off before I'm thinking about what I'm about to say. And of course, there are other ways for these things to work against us. And then the wind element, a typical, what we might call corruption or ineffective or damaging connection with the wind element, would be a martyr, the person who is so busy doing for other people that nobody's taking care of you. You've even lost the ability to take care of yourself.
Right.
And again, very brief. I mean, it's much more in depth than that, but that gives you a little flavor.
So with these elements, do then you practice your discipline according to that element in terms of how you react or how you handle the discipline?
Absolutely. So even within the martial art, within the physical, it's not a cookie cutter martial art. So we are not going to take people with various different body styles and shapes and different ways of thinking about the world and try to push them all into one little box and say you have to move this way.
Mm-hmm.
I experienced that when I did Taekwondo, where even people who were just never going to be real flexible unless they were surgically altered, were asked to try to lift their leg up to kick somebody in the head. And, tragically, what they started as something that they were excited about became a frustration in their life, which is the opposite of what we want martial arts to be for people. So these elements, we want you to connect with what is your natural strength, while we also look at minimizing what you might identify as your weakness. But this brings us to the fifth element, which is the void. So if I give you a visual, if you draw like a tic-tac-toe board,
Mm-hmm.
and then think about the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, we could put each of these elements, earth, wind, water, fire, in one of those four places. The center box of the tic-tac-toe board would be this void element. And that's what we call formless appropriateness. So if you think about that language for a minute, formless appropriateness, sometimes it's hard for people to connect with that. So I like to use an analogy of a musician. So a musician may start off learning, first you start with the scales, which are your basics. Then you start replicating songs. But eventually, as a good musician, you want to be able to jam, right?
Yeah.
You want to take whatever in your heart and in your mind, what you're feeling, and just have that come out of your instrument as a natural manifestation. And that's exactly what our art does. So we take you through these basics and these principles so that you own them in a functional way, and then your movement is going to be your movement based on how you think. Or because, we could take the exact same attacker and the exact same attack, and even myself on any given day, I might feel very differently. So I might feel earthy, where no, I'm going to hold my ground, or I might feel watery. Whoa, wait a minute, I'm not really ready for this. Or I might feel fiery. Hey, you're not going to do that. I'm not even going to let you get started. Or I might feel, windy. Okay, take it easy. Just leave me alone. I don't want anything to do with this. So same attacker, same attack, but any given day or even different periods of the day, I might feel differently. So my natural unaffected response could be different.
Wow. That is so applicable to everybody's life. I mean, we know that we're in, situations every day that we feel differently like that. And so that is so powerful. And everybody can use that, whether or not they're practicing the physical martial arts involved, but absolutely you can apply that to everyday activity or when you come across human interaction.
Absolutely. So that's our objective. This is the ninja martial art has always been a very holistic thing. It's about protection of your family, your community, and yourself. And that means protecting your health. And so a lot of times, I'll tell students, there's a certain stage at which I'm not going to let you promote beyond a certain belt level unless you have taken full ownership of your own personal health. So if you're overweight, you've got some very bad eating habits, I'll let you get to a certain place, but then it makes no sense at all for me as a teacher to train you how to bust up another human body, but you're killing yourself from the inside out every day with your bad habits.
Wow. That's very key. I mean, it's refreshing to hear that because, I'm just very unfamiliar with what happens in the martial arts setting in terms of when you go and take a class and exactly, I've sat in on some. And so it's very refreshing to hear that is being taught rather than it's just the movements involved.
We do have a very unique approach, and particularly today with pop culture has really embraced this MMA thing, and without at the risk of sounding offensive, I'm not happy about it because it looks like we're supporting gratuitous violence, and now violence is being celebrated. And the true history of the martial arts. I mean, a true warrior, and you can actually talk to, to verify this, talk to some veterans who have come back from some serious fights and have seen friends get maimed and killed and die horrific deaths. A true warrior really wants to avoid violence, and so we train to choose peace from a position of power. I would really, like to exhaust all of my resources before I have to do something physical. However, if that's all that's left to me, I don't
game over for the other person.
Right, and this is one of the hardest things to get through to martial arts students, because what now has become pervasive is this contest mentality. And what I mean by that is what people fail to realize is, the promoters are the ones who are doing really well here.
Right.
So if you get two guys and, they call it no holds barred. However, there are, last I checked, about 46 rules. So this is a contest. This is clearly a contest, which is, regulated to certain degrees with rules. And if it were self-defense, let's say somebody, is willing, some pathological individual is willing to open my belly for whatever they think might be in my wallet, I want this to be over in 0.3 seconds. I want to touch you once and you're either maimed or you're dead, as horrible as that sounds, right?
Right.
But if we're looking at somebody who's making a living by promoting a contest, if the thing's over in 0.3 seconds, this guy's not happy.
Right.
Because the crowd is not happy now. Okay. So it's a very, very different approach. And it's hard to get people to grasp the difference between sport and entertainment, martial arts, and realistic self-protection.
So let's shift a little bit, because I love what we're talking about. I love how this is very useful for everybody and how they can apply it to their lives. I love your book. I love the title of this book. And so it's called Clearing Away the Crap in My Cap. I thought it was crap in my crap. Clearing away the crap in my cap. Lessons in life mastery. Tell us about this. Tell us about your message.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the crap in your cap is a metaphor for all of the junk that we get socialized into and, gets programmed in there. And a lot of times without us having any conscious say in the matter. So, we get socialized, we get enculturated, and we just grow up with these things and we accept them. And so everything from limiting beliefs about ourselves. So, my personal example is when I was young, my mind, there are parts of my mind that were still developing that didn't connect and communicate effectively with my body yet. And so I remember playing baseball. We used to play this thing called Indian ball out in the street. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't hit the ball. My eye-hand coordination just wasn't, I tell people it was funny. It's hard on the radio, but if you can imagine, I swing the bat. It goes past my head, comes all the way around over my other shoulder, and that's when I hit the ball, So I was that far off.
The timing.
Yeah. But the reason I bring up the story is, my father loved me to death. He's alive today. He loves me to death. And but I overheard him say to somebody, "Oh, poor guy just has no coordination." Now, see, that gets in there.
Yeah.
Now, if he knew, oh my God, that's going to affect him for the rest of his life, he would have thought twice about saying that. But that's what I'm saying. These things get in there, okay? And they get in there in a bunch of different ways. People who love us say things they think are designed to protect us, but they may, instill in us a limiting belief. The marketers are all over us all day, 24/7, convincing us that we need stuff that, no, you don't need.
Right.
But, I got to have the newest this and the best that and keep up with the Joneses. And so that's really what this book is about. This book is about, let's take another look at reconnecting with the things that really do matter and stop obsessing over the things that don't really matter that much. And it was funny because a friend of mine and I and my wife, we went to see The Cat in the Hat, and I have to say I was a little disappointed because I thought, this was a lot of us grew up with Dr. Seuss, and I think they took this thing and put a little too much vulgar, adult.
The one with Michael Myers in it, that movie.
Yeah, a little too much, innuendo. That I know they were trying to reach all audiences, and I understand that from a business perspective. But so, I said, God, it just brought me back to Dr. Seuss, and I said, hey, how come they don't have Dr. Seuss for adults? We all learned so much from that. And my friend said, well, hey, why don't you do that? So right there, just on a whim, I wrote about 3 paragraphs, and I realized, you know what? I don't know why, but I can do this. And so I wrote this whole book in rhyming format.
Oh, and, love it.
Yeah. So you can enjoy it on a bunch of different levels. I mean, if nothing else, the book is you're gonna get a couple of good belly laughs out of the book.
I love it.
But on the other hand, it's in a humorous, lighthearted way, causing us to think a little bit about the underlying issues. Because I read, stacks and stacks of self-help and personal development books, and a lot of them are just quite grim. It's like, it just seems like so much work. Here's the 7 steps to this, and the 12 you got to do these, and a lot. And
I like the thickness. The lack thereof.
Yes. No, it's a very easy read, and you could open it to any chapter or any page, and
because people nowadays with technology give me the meat. What's the meat? What do I have to do?
Right.
And so, being on that topic, give like 2 tips on how somebody can start moving in that direction of getting rid of the crap in their cap. What are 2 things that somebody can do?
Yeah, here's the fundamental thing, which is directly connected to our tradition, is something called Sanmitsu. Sanmitsu, to the Japanese warrior mountain mystics, was the triple secret. And the triple secret is that whether you are aware of it or not, your thoughts, your speech, and your actions are creating your experience of reality. So the way you think, which drives the things you say and the things you do, are creating your reality. Now, if I'm not paying attention to that, if I'm, allowing other people to do my thinking for me, and things come out of my mouth without me even being aware of it, or I have habits that I've even lost awareness of, these things can make my life seem like it's not going well. So what's the antidote to that? The antidote to that is becoming a student of awareness. I have to slowly cultivate and build my awareness muscles. So I am paying attention. Well, how do you do that? Well, you catch yourself, sometimes mid-habit, sometimes after the fact. So one of the practices we teach is a reflective practice. The traditional Japanese name is Sangemon, but, it's not important. The idea is at least once a week, sit down, in a comfortable place. You might call it meditation. If that's not comfortable with you, you don't have to call it meditation. You can sit in an easy chair and review in your mind what you experienced as one of the most important moments of your week. A lot of times we're looking at, okay, when did something go wrong?
Right.
So, I just wasn't happy with the way this turned out. So now you can go back after the fact as an observer and observe yourself. So go back into your mind, watch what happened, see if you can find the point at which you knew it went bad, and then study yourself. What was I thinking right then? What did I say? Why did I say that? What was I doing? What was my body language? So by cultivating this awareness and taking control of these 3 building blocks, I can literally engineer my life into what I want it to be. Or I could take the other approach. Let these things work by happenstance. But like I tell my students, if you decide to be that sort of rudderless boat, then what you forego is the right to complain about where the boat takes you.
Right. Okay. And isn't that all part of self-actualization that we get to? And so how long does this process take? Forever, your whole life?
Absolutely. So it would be like asking, well, when is my health thing going to be over? No, you're going to be paying attention to your health as long as you're alive, we hope.
Right.
So it's a process. You used the correct term. It's a process. This is not a destination. This is a way of life. This is the way I approach life.
Because everybody's looking for that magic pill, that magic bullet. When is this going to be perfect for me? When am I going to have the perfect body? When am I? So
well, this is what's called stasis. People are looking for stasis, where nothing changes.
Yes.
Well, you will find that when they put you 6 feet under.
There you go.
Until then, everything around you is going to change.
Yeah.
So you should do everything you can to be in a position to ride the changes that you can affect, but also pay attention to, no, what can I affect?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the challenging things is we're talking about taking responsibility. So a lot of people don't like to do that.
We are in an age where people don't take responsibility. That is for sure.
No, this happened to me, and they don't even want to investigate what might I have had to do with this happening to me. So it's about awareness. It's all about cultivating awareness. If there's a silver bullet, that's it. Awareness.
Awareness.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, not only do you have this amazing book, but you were also involved. You're a member of the Actors Guild, Screen Actors Guild. So you have done movies as well. We've got 4 feature films that you were involved in, either with appearing or choreographing the scenes in that. Tell me about that. That is pretty exciting stuff.
Well, this is pretty old news.
That's good though. But who can say that they were on a feature film? That's pretty cool. He's being modest.
Well, I have to say it was fun. I mean, there were some things frustrating about it, but for the most part, it was a blast. Really enjoyed doing it. And this was back in the early 90s. Now, I have been considering getting my hand back in play, so I may hunt down an agent again, and I did pretty well with those things. I enjoyed them, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun. There are frustrating things. So some of what I thought was my best work ended up on the cutting room floor. And actually, one of the films I did, it was actually a 2-hour pilot for a European. It was a European investigator thing. Like, I don't know, you might remember Cannon. Remember Frank Cannon? Do you remember that show?
No.
Anyway, it was just
Is it European?
Private investigator. No, that was the version of the one here in the States.
Okay.
But anyway, this was the 2-hour pilot called The Ninja Shadow, and I've never seen it. I've never. They promised me they'd send me the footage, and to this day, I've never seen it.
And you were in it. You were the person that.
I was
the ninja.
I was one of the guys
cool.
in there. I was not a key player in that one. My co-starring role was in something called Blood Brothers, No Retreat, No Surrender, Part 3, and some interesting stories there that would take up too much time. But
now, when you're doing the choreography, are you teaching the actors on how to move? Are you kind of like their technical guide as well on set? And how do the actors adjust to that? How do they learn?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, because what happened was in most of those films, I was actually doing my own things, and then they asked me to choreograph some things, and what we found was that the martial art that I do is so unique in its movement that they couldn't do what I was asking them to do. So the director got a little frustrated and said, well, it looks great when you do it, but these guys their bodies just aren't trained to move that way.
So were you their double?
No.
The director should have done that.
Maybe. My biggest disappointment actually was in one film, they were gonna dress me up to look like somebody different, and I was gonna get strafed by an Uzi, so I was gonna get shot 5 times, and I wanted to do that just for fun,
Yeah.
And then the day before it happened, the director had a fight with the FX guy, and he walked off the set, and so they scrapped that part. I was so disappointed.
Oh, you hear stories of that happening all the time.
Yeah.
People come and go during these things. So, but that's a really cool experience in that. And so, not only with the book and the movies and your blogging as well on your website, and so you got some really great messages. And so I was looking through that, and one of the things that I read, and this is something that you can plug as well, because I know that you do these retreats on a regular basis, and I think this is really cool for our listeners to hear about. But you wrote about the road not taken, and you had a conference, Fudo Shin, in 2011. I hear that you have one coming up as well. So talk about that.
We do, yeah. We do this every year, at least once a year, sometimes twice a year. This year we're scheduled for December 8th through the 11th, I believe, and that's going to be in Orlando at a 5-star resort there. Fudo Shin in Japanese language means immovable spirit. Now, at first blush, people will think, oh, I've got everything so wrapped up that nothing can move me. And the metaphor is exactly the opposite. So what at first blush, what I would call a comic book idea of Fudo Shin would mean, oh, I'm just so tough, nobody messes with me. But actually, immovable spirit is the opposite of that. It's that I am so flexible that nothing can break me.
Oh, that's very nice. Very powerful.
Yeah. So we do a lot of work with this concept of Sanmitsu that I mentioned earlier. How do I do that? How do I practice this paying attention? We cover all kinds of very critical and important things to taking back control of your life, to engineering your life the way you would like it to be, and identifying the ways that you might get in your own way inadvertently, not even being aware of it. One of the if I could talk about two of the main things we cover, one of those is homeostasis. And homeostasis, by definition, is the energy of any system that is focusing on maintaining stasis, keeping things the way that they are. And so that is the enemy of change. And so let's say I'm somebody who is not very physically fit, and I'd like to do that now. And so I start this program. Well, the biggest enemy you're going to have, what I call gatekeepers, the people, the things that want to keep you in your comfort zone, is this homeostasis. So your body, the first time you work out, your body is going to start screaming at you, what are you doing?
Right.
This is not fun. I'm not having a good time. It doesn't feel good. So all of these things, we have internal and external gatekeepers. You may even have, so an external gatekeeper would be maybe you have other acquaintances who are not particularly physically fit, and so now they'll try to hold you back. Oh, come on, blow the gym off. Let's go out and have a drink. So there are various components to the system that are going to engage in homeostasis to try to prevent you from making a change. Now, the good news side of the story is once you have made the change and you have created a new habit, now homeostasis can actually be your ally. It can keep you there. So those of us that work out on a regular basis, and I'm sure you experience this, if you miss a few days, I start getting grumpy. I start turning into a little bit of a dragon. I need my workout fix.
We have a different name for me. Yours is dragon, mine's something else.
Yeah. And then the second thing we look at, which I think if there is a golden bullet in life, this is the golden bullet. It's a term I call detachment. So detachment, again, at first blush, you can believe that that's apathy. Oh, I just don't care. No, that's not true. Detachment is how can I be aware of something and, connected to something without being desperately attached to it. Okay. So it's a very complex concept, and we go into a lot of depth in this because a lot of times we allow ourselves to become attached, or a psychological term is identified with things that we don't have control over and can be taken from us. So an example, maybe a tragic example of this, is when someone, their whole life, their identity gets wrapped up in their career. Right? Mm-hmm. And so this can sound insane if you look at it on the face of it. So here I am, my whole identity is wrapped up in my career, but what am I working toward? Retirement, because I want to retire. And then we've all heard these stories about people who retire and then somehow life goes bad. Some illness strikes them or something, and there are theories that suggest that, yeah, it's because my identity just went away. I didn't have any real core identity outside of these things that I allowed myself to be attached to. So there are very many different ways to practice this idea of detachment. But the way, for listeners, the way to begin is to just start detaching from small things. What I'm about to get excited about or upset about, does it matter?
Right.
Does it really matter? And so again, we start small. So just like you would in the gym, you don't go in and do a ballistic workout on the first day.
Right.
You start small and you ease your way into it. So training our minds, sip of water, please.
Yes.
Training.
See, he's good at this.
We do that the same way. We go very slowly and we ease into it. And one of my teachers, one of the best things I learned from one of my teachers, I train with a lot of Tibetan lamas and, contemplatives, people who have been studying mind sciences for their whole lives.
Take another sip of water.
Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt you.
And these people have studied with folks who, while over here in the West, we've been caught up with a electronic technology. These people have been working on the technology of the mind for thousands of years. So I have these teachers that, coach me on how to train your mind. And, this is one of the most important things, is to just go slowly. And so my teacher said, train your mind when things are good so you will know how to be when things are not so good.
Very important.
Yeah.
Very important. And so these are the subjects that you cover during your retreat, and this is what you focus on. Like a couple of the things, and that is coming up in December. And who can come to this if people are interested in something like this?
Anybody that is interested. You don't
Okay.
you don't need to be one of my martial arts students. So we open this to anybody that is interested in. No, I would like to understand these 3 building blocks, because this is not some theory that somebody made up. I mean, this is undeniable truth.
Mm-hmm.
The way you think, the things you say, and the things you do engineer your life experience.
And we could all use that. Now, where could somebody go to get more information about that? What website?
Tampa Quest Martial Arts. Tampa Quest Center. Yeah, Tampa. I don't go to my own site that often.
Yeah, people that do that. Just call my people.
Yeah.
So say it again.
Tampa Quest Center.
TampaQuestCenter.com. All right, fantastic.
Yes. And my personal site is Sentoshi.com.
Sentoshi.com. Now, tell us a little bit, real briefly, what does that mean? Obviously, you had to do something to earn the name. Yes. What do you go through to do that?
This is a warrior name that was bestowed by my teacher. There is something called the Order of the Toshi, which is warrior knights. And my particular name means the warrior knight of the lightning bright blade.
Very nice, very nice. And so that is an honor that has been bestowed upon you, and you have that name now. So Sentoshi.com.
Correct.
And I'll spell that SENTOSHI.com. So everybody go check that out. I mean, just some amazing information. Mark, thank you so very much for coming on and just really enlightening me and our listeners. And I'm just very thankful that we had the opportunity to share today. So
my pleasure. My pleasure.
All right, so right now, quickly, everybody, what we're going to cover right now is I always promise you that we are going to talk about what's trending in the health and fitness industry, because I know everybody out there is looking for that magic pill. What is going to change me head to toe? Can I do it in 5 seconds? And the answer is no, you can't. You have to put the work in. But gang, it is fun. And once you're in it and you're doing it, you're going to be happier, you're healthy. But, right now, what I love, what is trending right now is getting back to the basics. And we are now going back to exercise programs that are utilizing your very own body weight. There is no need to go out and spend a lot of money on equipment, the gadget that's going to be around for 5 days, and then the next new gadget's going to come out. So, really get out there and move your body, and you're going to be healthier than being sedentary for sure. But the things that are trending right now, getting back to the basics, you have to include some sort of resistance training, so sit-ups, push-ups, anything that involves moving your muscles, lifting. And then you need to get in cardio activity. You need to get in at least 30 minutes of exercise that will elevate your heart rate. And you need to do that 3 to 5 days a week. And then you need to incorporate flexibility into your overall routine. All your major muscles, hold your stretches for about 20 seconds a piece, and do that every time you work out. And so really getting back to the basics, 3 things in your exercise: strength, cardio, stretching, and then always follow a proper nutritional plan. You guys know what to do. We're talking fruits, vegetables, lean meats, nothing fancy. You just got to watch your portion control. So again, getting back to the basics. Functional fitness. Can you walk up a flight of stairs without getting completely out of breath? And so that is what we're focusing on. Can you move your body? When you get older, are you going to be able to function? Are you going to be able to pick up your grandchildren? Are you going to be able to get on the floor with your grandchildren? Are you going to be able to move? And then also mind-body workouts. If you can get into a Pilates class or a yoga class, I highly recommend that you try it out if you haven't. Go to your gym, go to a community center, and also mind-body workouts, including martial arts. And I'm so glad that Mark was with us today, because that goes right along with what we're talking about. And not only are we doing physical movement, but exercising your mind as well, and that's going to keep you healthy and fit. And then the buddy system of working out. We have partner training. Personal trainers are understanding the value of doing partner training. So 2-on-1, 3-on-1 with a personal trainer. And all the professionals and the experts out there are saying that more than ever, people are going to be utilizing personal trainers to really reach specific goals and really set them on that healthy path. And so the buddy system, we all know that you're going to stick with your exercise program, you're going to be held accountable, and you're going to be more successful if you do it with a buddy. So that's what's trending in the industry these days, gang. It's nothing fancy schmancy, but you're going to get great results. So how many times did we say the word mind today? Well, let me know. Go to my Facebook page, facebook.com, and it's Carol Ann Miss Fit is my handle for Facebook. Carol Ann Miss Fit, and tell me how many times we said the word mind today. Okay, gang, well, that's it for today. Thank you for joining me, and be sure to tune in every Tuesday at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time at healthinforadio.com, where you will definitely have your finger on the pulse with Carol Ann.
You have been listening to The Pulse on healthinforadio.com every Tuesday, 12:30 to 1:30 Eastern Standard Time.